This is episode 34 of Uncommon Conversations, part 2, with a returning guest, Charles Gardner. And he is a strength and conditioning coach out of Huntsville, Alabama. A very bright, well read, educated man who provides wonderful, interesting conversations. I'm going to be inviting him real quick.
There we go. And you're back. We're back, baby.
Back. Okay.
All right. So I got my notes out here so that I can actually go through what specifically I wanted to get through in this podcast, and we'll hit you with some quick ones. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we're doing as Jesse Lee Peterson say, you put me in the hot seat.
You're getting in the hot seat. White hot right now. I'll give you a layup first, and we'll see what happens after that. How do you think we can best help America become fit and healthy in the broadest sense of that phrase?
Start pushing it in schools again. They used to have presidential fitness tests. They took those out because it made the kids who couldn't do pull-ups feel bad. Teach them to be mentally tough. Don't listen to just because the kid cries about not being able to do something. Don't say, well, okay, we'll just take it away. It's like when you have a child and you're teaching them how to ride a bike. Okay, they have training wheels, right? Okay, you use the training wheels for a while, but eventually you take them off. You can't just, keep them on the training wheels forever. Otherwise, they don't know how to ride a bike. They just pretending.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that's exactly what we need. We definitely need that, just to start prioritizing it again, not care about people's feelings. Like the idea that you wouldn't have kids do push-ups because not every kid can do as many push-ups as they should is like literally saying like we shouldn't be concerned about people's health because some people are not healthy. It's like it's just ridiculous. I think on top of that, I'd love to see martial arts be not just wrestling, but other martial arts become a regular part of school curriculums. And if we got a better education system in general, that would become a part of it, I'm quite sure. And beyond that, I definitely am all for making sure they're getting good food. I remember what I ate in school, and it was there's no other word for it, dog shit. It was like, here's some sugar, here's some coloring, and here's some more sugar, and then here's like 5 grams of protein and some more sugar, and then go try to do math. Like it was the worst kind of stuff. We got grapes and syrup and cakes for lunch. Literally little loaves of cake.
I understand.
What the fuck are we doing?
I always, my mom always made our lunches. So it was, we get sandwich, piece of fruit, maybe some chips, and a Capri Sun, or some treetop apple juice in the box, or thermos to keep it cool. That was lunch, man. Mom made lunches for the kids in school, and school would let you bring it in at the time. And then even in high school, I made my own lunch because I didn't like what they were serving at the caf, so I made my own lunch at home. I brought it. And people are like, well, how do you make your own lunch and keep it? I said, making a sandwich ain't hard.
Takes all of 20 seconds.
It'll keep. I promise you. You get your little cool pack. You put it in the bag. Get your little cool pack. Put it in there. Make your sandwich. Throw it in there. Put you some fruit in there if you want to. Some chips, whatever you want. Put it in a little, lunchbox. Throw it in your locker. It'll be fine.
I have a very controversial. I think it's controversial. Maybe it's not. Opinion on this topic, but it gets to deeper issues. If a kid is showing up to school hungry, I don't consider that to be a financial problem. I consider that to be a parenting problem. If you ain't feeding your kids, especially if you're getting welfare and all the other kinds of things we have out there to help you, that's a sign of negligence on the parent, in my opinion. Not well, they're poor, so they couldn't afford it, blah blah blah. It's like rice is dirt cheap, cheap, meats after the fact, is dirt cheap. I understand, like, not everyone, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I get the circumstances, I understand it's hard, but to me, like, you're not entitled to just have a kid, even if you won't take care of it. We do have standards, and I think those standards should matter. And I think if your kid's going to school hungry, if they're going to school without, things being prepared for them, that's more so on the parent probably than the individual circumstances in most cases. But that's my opinion, and also that's because I think a lot of parents suck. I think a lot of parents are shitty parents, and so we have a giant it's okay that we sort of give in society, but in reality, I am very much in the track of people need to wake up to how many shitty parents there are out there, and we need to call them out for it. They can't just be like, well, that's your kid, so you could go abuse that kid, you could go neglect that kid, you could go tell that kid's not worth a shit because it's not my kid. No, that's crap. We need to hold each other accountable and be honest about what we see. And I think part of that is acknowledging that I think for the most part, if your kid's showing up without a meal, probably a parenting issue, not a financial issue.
It could be it could be a mix of both. Some cases. And this is where, you run into people going, well, just let the state deal with it. No, that's bad. That's probably the worst thing you could do. You're abdicating your responsibility and you're putting it on to the state. Once again, making yourself a slave to it. The key word is you want to avoid being a slave. It's the very thing, because when you become a slave, you have to do everything the master tells you to do. You cannot buck against the master's demand when you make yourself a slave. It is impossible to do that. You may think that owning nothing, being poor and owning nothing will make you happy because someone is taking care of you, but they're not taking care of you. They're going to abuse you. They're going to use you. And then when they're done with you, they're going to throw you away. You become nothing more than an object to them.
A resource.
Barely even that. And so it may sound great, this Star Trekian future that is painted in front of you in movies, sci-fi, and all this business. That's not real life. That's not real life. Like I said, you become a slave. The very thing that you do not want.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel.
And I think people don't understand. And this is sort of where I try to bring home one of my central points I try to bring home, because it tells the Democrats they're not quite as for the poor as they think they are. And it lets everyone sort of understand the flexibility in a lot of these economic issues we talk about. Cost of living is not a fixed number. There are things that can be done to bring down cost of living. Rent in Oklahoma and Texas and Alabama is a totally different ballgame than rent and owning a house in California because of government policies. Taxes on gasoline that make it more expensive for you to commute is a government thing, not just because gas is expensive. And people don't understand that. There's a bunch of other things that make people artificially dependent,
right,
that otherwise would not if these certain things were changed. And so part of what I'm saying there is I understand that there are these sort of artificial barriers to independence. And I have compassion for people that just can't afford things or just are on hard times. There was one point in my childhood where we had no food in the home, and we were connected by an extension cord to our fridge, and our TV was connected by an extension cord to the neighbor's house because we did not have electricity. And when that happened, it was sort of a rock bottom for my dad and his issues. And it was the beginning of a launch into responsibility and ascendance on my mom's part, which ultimately cost her her health in the long run. She was doing 100-hour weeks on 2 hours of sleep a night for 3 or 4 years. And she ended up getting 3rd-degree adrenal fatigue and had to be put on workman's comp because she was so exhausted. She had to work. She worked for 2 years on a broken foot at an industrial plant where her office was up the stairs. So, and that gets to workman's comp and how the system screws people and all sorts of other stuff that's really, really deep in me. That is why I'm doing this. I think for the most part, that's the main motivation deep down. Is I realized at a young age that the system is not designed to take care of us when we need it, and that's horseshit, and someone needs to do something about it. There's a little side note there.
I can tell you're passionate about that one because it hit you personally. It hit you personally.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I get this, and I know what it's like to be on the worst of times. I also, a few years prior to that, I went and visited my great-grandmother in North Carolina, and we had so much money. I got $100 to go spend on whatever I wanted, and I went and bought myself Exodia, the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, the 5 set of the unbeatable Yu-Gi-Oh cards, that golden, like, Egyptian-looking guy. So literally, I spent $100 on playing cards at one point in my childhood, so I knew what it's like to have more money than you need. And later on, we also experienced that other side of it. So I get what that's like, and I know in my own life, it was not a function of the economy or anything like that. It was very much my father failing and not doing his responsibility to his kids. Anyways, as a long side note, I don't even know exactly where we sort of tied that in there, but yeah, getting back to the full thing, I think there's a lot we can do to make people more fit and healthy, and not caring about people's feelings and just being honest and prioritizing these things is definitely the first step.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say not necessarily caring about people's feelings. I would say this: listen to them, try and understand where they're coming from, but understanding that reality is a thing, and everything you do is going to be a trade-off of something. You're not going to solve the problem. I go back to this. It's Thomas Sowell said it best. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
100%.
And then to add to that, at what cost? What are we doing these things for? What is the cost? What is the return on investment? Is there a return on investment by doing this? If there's not a return on investment other than accruing more power and control over people and still leaving them destitute and solely dependent on you, is that right? No, it's not. I mean, I own Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power, and one of those 48 Laws of Power is keep people dependent on you. Now, I read that, and it made me a bit uncomfortable because, from a moral standpoint, I believe in the sovereignty of an individual, the intelligence of an individual. I believe in this. So to have someone to be totally and completely dependent on me, no. I would prefer I would prefer for them to see me as a resource of information or something like that. But for them to be totally dependent on me, that's me trying to do a godlike status, and I don't necessarily want that.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, and this will feed into everything I'm about to say, some people want that precisely. They want that power. They want to feel like a god because, in my opinion, on the inside, they know they are not. They know they are mortal, and they are desperate to take control wherever they can. Many people that have eating disorders do that through eating. That is a thing humans do. We take control where we can, in an attempt to try to like deal with the fact that we fundamentally do not have control.
Right.
That book is called The 48 Laws of Power for a reason. Power is the most valued commodity on the planet outside of human beings themselves, because specifically we're talking about power over human beings in this particular situation. It's called The 48 Laws of Power. It's not called The 48 Laws of Serving Other People. It's not called The 48 Laws of Morality. It's The 48 Laws of Power. Power is not a moral thing. When you talk about people being dependent on you, well, some people are going to have to be dependent on you because you have something they do not, so they have to get it from you, and so there's that. But then there's the turning it into extra power over other human beings, and where it gets into evil power, not just authority, but evil power. Right. Yeah, I read sections out of that, or I didn't read sections out of that book. A friend of mine who read the book sent me sections referencing certain things, like you want to play to people's desire to believe, and various other things. They were sort of tying those things to what Trump does and the way he sort of goes about his business. And there's definitely a lot of that going on there, but it's a question of what are you oriented towards? Are you oriented towards the good, towards the bad? Are you just serving yourself? You got to ask the motivation, because the skill set, like being a charismatic person, if you're Martin Luther King, okay, it's a good thing. Being a charismatic person, if you're Adolf Hitler, is definitely not a good thing. And so those underlying skills or tools are just sort of what they are. Because you're oriented towards the good, you automatically had discomfort with the negative and evil applications of these lessons, because it's very easy to see, and then tying back to what I said earlier, if you make people artificially dependent on you through higher cost of living, you get more power over them. And that's what we've seen in every single place where there's high cost of living. People keep saying, government help me, government help me, government help me. I can't handle it on my own. The government's creating that to a certain degree themselves. And it makes sense, because again, if you want power, that's how you get power. And like you said, 48 laws of power. On that note, I wanted to, we'll turn it around a little bit. What do you believe, what is it about a positive mindset that is so critical to success or meaning, or whatever you might want to say in your life, happiness? What does a positive attitude, positive mindset mean to you? And what is the importance of that in what you've learned and in trying to give that to other people?
The power of a positive mindset. Very important. Very important. But having a positive mindset is not solely dependent on yourself. Having people in your life that you can talk to and help keep you in that mindset is important to keeping it and maintaining it and building it. I have a really good friend. I've known him for 10 plus years now. And, I talk to him fairly regularly. And we keep each other staying positive, because the world's a crazy place right now. And so with nobody wanting to talk to anybody, because they're afraid they're going to catch something because they open in their mouth. It's really good to have people to talk to. Otherwise, you get lost in your own thoughts, and that can be a problem. So having someone else to, help you stay positive, in a positive mindset, when things are hard, is important. Support systems, basically, is what I'm saying. Have a solid support system to help you stay in a positive mindset. You're going to find people who are negative people. There are more of them than the other. So if you can find positive people, lock into them. Lock into them. Make those people, because they're going to be important in helping you stay positive in the face of adversity and difficulty.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's cool because yesterday, one of the I'm always sort of reflecting and trying to absorb things out of my experiences, and being at that wedding, seeing all that love and that community and the friends and just everything about that drove home exactly the point you just talked about. Having the right people around you to fulfill you, to fill you, to fulfill your life, to just to be that positive support or influence. Yeah, it's super, super critical, super important. And community, you need that support system, that community. You need the right kind of community, not just a community, because many people make that mistake. They just want someone. They don't want a good someone. And so we'll flip this a little bit. What are the dangers of resentment from your perspective, and how do you fight resentment?
The dangers of resentment will lead to the very people that you mentioned earlier, these communist individuals that you talk to. That whole ideology is on resenting someone for the things that they have. You feel as though you're entitled to other people's happiness or other people's things because you don't have them. You resent them because of what they have. Resentment is built off of envy, jealousy, and lack of self-awareness, lack of being secure in yourself, and yourself not having true agency yourself. All of those things are symptoms of that. So the danger of that leads to the biggest thing is being an unhappy individual. You can never find happiness at all, not even in yourself, because happiness is not a function of things going on outside of you, because there's always going to be something that upsets you out there. Happiness has to come from within. You first have to be happy with yourself. So I guess if I were to flip this, resentment comes from resenting yourself first, not being happy with who you are. That goes into a lot of other things that would just spin this conversation off into another stratosphere. But, if you're not happy with you, then you start beginning to look at other people and as the problem with why you're not happy. And so it becomes a infinity loop. It's just it starts to feed itself after a while. So yeah, the biggest danger is being unhappy, and then I guess the next thing would be you end up not having friends and people of that nature, because nobody wants to be around a resentful person. Because when you're a resentful person, you look at other people as an opportunity. You become opportunistic. You try to find ways of taking advantage of them and using them to get. And it's just nasty. It's just a nasty thing.
I want to touch on a quick thing you said there. If someone does not believe they can change themselves, and they don't believe in the growth mindset, or even just their personal agency and their ability to evolve themselves in a certain chosen direction, they'll feel trapped in that, where like, not only do I hate who I am or I don't like who I am, but beyond that, I feel like I'm never going to escape who I am. And that is definitely a false thing to believe. First, and second, if you do believe that, it's a very dangerous thing to believe, because if you believe that regardless of your choices, your actions, your mentality, your willpower, whatever, you're never going to change, then you don't have any motivation to change, and you'll settle into some of your worst aspects, some of your worst parts of yourself. You just say this is just how it is, and let it wreak havoc when it otherwise would not, if you had chosen to fight it and try to grow. And so I think having that understanding that you can change yourself, you can grow, is key to fighting resentment, because you can get out of it in a certain sense if it is motivated based off of what you said, that internal resentment of self.
And this goes back to that support system and having people around you who are good. And I'm gonna go all the way back to something we talked about earlier as far as parents are concerned. One of the things that my parents, both of them, were very big on was telling me that, okay, just because somebody tells you that you can't do something doesn't mean that that's true. And the caveat with that was, if they're telling you you can't do something because it's bad for you, then that's different. If they're telling you that you can't do something that's good for you, then try your best to prove them wrong. If it's good for you. If someone's saying that, if you state a personal challenge to yourself and you say to somebody like, yeah, I'm going to see if I can read 20 books in the next 6 months. And, oh, man, you can't do that. Can't nobody do that. Okay, challenge accepted. Let's see. Let's see if I can do that or not. Because that's something good. You find the books that you like and you just start reading. You don't tell them when you get done. You come back and you say, hey, I read all them books in 6 months. No way. Yep. And I can tell you all about them too. I got a list. I finished this one. This, it just depends on what it is. If it's something that's good, then try and push. If it's something that's bad, or that's just morally wrong, then yes, don't do that. But that's not part of that. And society now likes to try and tell people what they can't do, what they're not going to be able to accomplish, and this somehow is a badge of honor because you can scream out that I'm a victim. Look at me. Look at how much I suffer. To quote Jordan Peterson, since we've brought him up, suffering is a part of life. And we all suffer. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how much money you have. We all suffer from something. It's just that those who may be higher up on the economic train are better at hiding it. They're much better at hiding it. But they suffer as well. Especially if they've
They
done
just suffer from one less thing,
well.
not having money.
Well, but see, here's the thing. If they've done bad things to get that money, to get that power, then they suffer from. See, here's something that a lot of people don't know. Ill-gotten gain, money that you have not, or power that you have, money and power that you have not attained properly, let's say, ill-gotten gain, the sleep of those individuals is bitter. They do not sleep. They cannot sleep. They have to constantly be doing something. They have to constantly be involved because if they try to go to sleep, then their conscience starts nagging at them because they know deep down whatever it is they're involved in is not good. And so in order to assuage that or move away from that, they have to keep moving. They can't stop because the minute they stop, it comes back. So they literally have to work themselves to the bone, to death, in order to stifle their consciences. Because most of these uber elites, they don't sleep well. They don't sleep well like you and I do. We work hard. We try to do things the right way. And, we have our stresses and whatnot and all of this business. But at the end of the day, when we go to bed, unless we've had some caffeine or we just can't find a comfortable position, we out like a light. These individuals can't do it because the way that they've acquired their wealth and power will not allow them to do it.
Yeah, I think you're dead on there. That makes me think of a few busy bees that I know that have gotten their money in improper ways, and yeah, seem to never stop chasing the next distraction, even if it is work or whatever it may be. Like they're in that race away from something, away from reflection on themselves and how they got there.
This
I
is
got two more for you. Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No.
I was gonna say one. I love your thoughts on Tyler Bluntman, and then after that, I like 5 book recommendations.
5 book recommendations. Okay, I have to pull some books from behind me. But I
You
think
can do that one first if you want.
sure. Let's see. I'm gonna roll my chair over. I don't want to get up. Let's see. Um, hmm, uh, boom. You said 5. Let's see here. Um, that's one. That's 3. Um, uh, there. And let's see. Okay. All right. I got all 5 books. I think these are some recommendations. Okay. I know people won't be able to see this. It's kind of backwards, but it's The Richest Man in Babylon, finance book. I own quite a few finance books. Some things are applicable right then at the moment. Other things are for future. That's the thing with finance books. Everybody's like, "Ooh, it's going to solve my problems immediately." No. Sometimes the things that they put in here you can't apply until later on when you have more means by which to apply them. These are time sensitive in the sense that some are immediate, other things you have to wait for, and then you can go back and reference them. So, but The Richest Man in Babylon, this is a great book to start with. Um, Another one, I'm not necessarily saying that he's. I like this one. I'm not going to talk about the author personally, but Ego is the Enemy. Great book. It talks about the dangers of ego. Um, not necessarily a fan of the author's politics per se, but the information in the book, I like. Um, let's see here. Another one of my favorites. Now I'm getting into the black conservative market here, but this one is a good one. False Black Power by Jason L. Riley. Um,
Oh, I
this
love Jason Riley. I've listened
yeah,
to a few of his interviews. He's a brilliant guy.
yeah, this one's a really good one. Um, yeah, this is small. It's short, but it's powerful. What's in there? Another one. The other one I like is White Guilt by Shelby Steele, and the full title is White Guilt: How Blacks and Whites Together Destroyed the Promise of the Civil Rights Era. A lot of good information in this one. It's actually his unauthorized autobiography. So he tells a lot of personal stories in this book. So definitely, it's a page turner. You'll definitely keep reading it because it's his life story. Then this guy recently passed away. He passed away last year. Walter E. Williams. Name of the book is Race and Economics. How much can be blamed on discrimination? This is also another finance book, but it tells you some backstory about, I guess, uh, the U.S. and its economic policies as it pertains to black folks. And it kind of goes into that And he gives you a few little tidbits too on how to, beat certain things and deal with certain things. So great little book there. Those are 5 books. I've got 20 more behind me. Uh, lots, lots of Thomas Sowell.
That was a solid 5, bro. That was a solid 5.
Yeah, and I have some other ones, but I'll mention one more as a bonus. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Stephen Covey. Um, that's a good one if you're trying to learn or get better at working with people. I would suggest reading it at least 2 or 3 times.
All right. Well, I obviously that is right up what I need to. That's right up the alley of the skill sets I need to be learning. So I'll put that one down on
Okay.
top of the others.
All right.
So thank you so much. That was a great. You're a very well read guy. I knew that, from the first time, from before we talked, and when I saw you doing the other live with Chevy back in the day, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun.
Those lives can get interesting because when you're dealing with those with lots of different people, um, trying to put all of that information into a 2-hour live doesn't work. You can only put in so much information, and if the people aren't familiar with the source material, it's not going to work. Or
Yep.
if they have false views of the source material. Take best example. There are a lot of African Americans who do not like Thomas Sowell, and it's simply based off of what they've been told about him. Now, you haven't read any of his stuff. You're just basing your opinion on his material off of what somebody else told you. Now, while I may disagree with Ryan Holiday's politics, his books on stoicism, and stuff like that, ego is the enemy, the obstacle is the way, those types, the material that's in there is good. I can divorce myself somewhat from his political stances and how he looks at things. And I actually found him well before I found out about his political leanings. So, okay, I still own his books. I didn't burn them. I still use them, actually. I still use them in how I coach people. So information was solid,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe sitting down and talking to him, it probably may not work out so well. But that's neither here nor there.
And we just touched on interesting lives. I've had a couple of interesting lives with Tyler Bluntman myself. So getting to him, what are your thoughts and opinion on Tyler Bluntman?
Tyler's all right. I have no problem with him. And he doesn't. I have nothing bad to say about him. I don't know. What are do you have differing opinions? I'm sure you do, I guess, but I don't. I just, everybody's entitled to their viewpoints on things. And he's entitled to his. I don't have anything bad to say about it.
I have 2 answers to how I feel about Tyler Bluntman. One was before we had an exchange on a topic, and he called what I said retarded and stupid. And then there's after that, there's before that. Before that, I kind of put him in the same category as a Steven Crowder from Louder with Crowder, where he's a little bit more aggressive than my cup of tea. He's not quite my preferred personality. I don't really spend too much time following what he does because I feel like the value I got out of it was short-lived. But he's a brilliant guy, well-read guy, thoughtful guy. He changed my worldview on abortion. Now, I was pretty much close to where he was, except for, and I'm still doing the research on this because I'm not a medical doctor, so I gotta spend a lot of time on this. On the abortion issue, the only exception that I ever had to the idea that abortion was wrong was if it threatens the life of the mother. And what he highlighted was there is really no circumstance where an abortion is the right response to that situation. Like if she has a miscarriage, or if there's some sort of an issue like that, or some sort of emergency surgery, it doesn't have to be an abortion in order to handle the issue. And I had never even sort of thought along those lines or reflected along the lines of, well, when is the life of the mother under threat? Are there circumstances under which that's the case? That's sort of taken for granted, because it's like that's taken for granted, and then you have rape and incest that's sort of on the side, and we tend to usually engage with those sides of things. And so I was really happy that he had gotten that far with it. And like I said, he called instead of actually trying to engage with the point I was trying to make, he said what I said was retarded and stupid. And he also said separately, we were beginning a conversation, and he responded to a comment saying that was retarded. And I responded thinking he was referring to me, because I had just made a statement that I was like, wow, you really like defeated my opinion there. Great job. And then he was like, I wasn't talking to you. And he's like doing one of the Lego man face things. And I was like, I don't even know if he's playing games with me or if he really was responding. And so I have maturity questions with him, and I don't enjoy my interactions with him. But outside of that, I think he's doing tremendously good work. I think he's on the right side of many issues, and I'm happy he's doing the work he's doing. And more than anything, I have a lot of respect for the guy. I think I just have a few things where personally our personalities don't mesh, a little bit of water and oil stuff. And that's life. That's how it is.
Okay, that's fair. Like I said, I understand in most of the lives that take place. I don't know these people. We just kind of mesh on ideologies in certain regards, certain viewpoints. In moments that we disagree, okay, that's fine.
How familiar are you with him? How long have you been following? I didn't even know about him until after we did our first couple podcasts.
I found out about Tyler doing other lives with like Sony and other people. But I said, I don't have no issue with Tyler. Tyler don't bother me one way or the other. I just, he's an entertaining guy. I think he's funny. And I just leave it, and I just go, all right, well, Tyler. All right, Tyler gonna be Tyler. And I just roll with it.
Right on. Okay. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you giving all these answers and being willing to be put on the spot in the hot seat.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure, man. I always enjoy talking to you. You always have a lot of value you bring to these things.
I'm pretty sure you'll come up with something for me for the next one that we do.
For sure. Well, yeah, we'll call it here, brother. You have a great one. I hope you have a wonderful night. Get some good sleep. Don't stay up doing any plans for anybody, any programs, and get a good night's sleep.
I'm gonna try and go to bed unless I end up on somebody's live.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
All right, man.
I'll see you, buddy.
See ya. You have a good one.